ringside view. He was grunting. His labor was yanking the sweat out of him. The crowd stood, tittering and excited, like a Salem mob watching the execution of a witch. The witch was black. She had the slant eyes and doll features of a geisha girl. The chill breeze whipped back the bottom of his benny. The giant's thigh muscles rippled inside the pants leg of his $200 vine. Again and again he slammed his size 13 shoe down on the witch's belly and chest. She was out cold. Her jaw hinge was awry, and red frothy bubbles bunched at the corners of her crooked mouth. At last he scooped her from the pavement. She looked like an infant in his arms. His eyes were strangely damp. He wedged through the crowd to a purple hog at the curb. He looked down into her unconscious face. He muttered, "Baby, why? Why do you make me do you like this? Why don't you hump and stop lushing and bullshitting with the tricks?" Still holding her tenderly, he stooped and opened the front door of the hog. He placed her on the front seat. He shut the door and walked around the hog to the driver's seat. He got in, and the hog roared away into the night. The crowd was scattering. I turned to a fellow about my age. His eyes were glazed. He was sucking a stick of gangster. I said, "That stud would have gotten busted sure as hell if the heat had made the scene." He stepped back and looked at me like I was fresh in town from a monastery in Tibet. He said, "You must be that square Rip Van Winkle I heard about." "He's heat. He's vice heat. They call him poison. He's got 9 whores. He's a pimp. That broad is one of 'em. She got drunk with a trick." I went into the liquor store. It was 5 after 12. I ordered the half pint. The clerk put it on the counter. I swung my top coat away to get my hide in my hip pocket. I had 205s and 10s in it. I had 5 C-notes pinned to my shorts and a tobacco sack between my legs. My fingers touched the bottom of the pocket. My right hip pocket was empty. I was sure my hide had been on that side. I dug my left hand into the left pocket. Empty. Within seconds, both my sweaty hands had darted in and explored all of my pockets a half dozen times. The clerk just stood there amused watching the show. His hairy paw slid the half pint back toward him from foul territory. He said, "What's the matter, buddy? Some broad ram into you for your poke, or did you leave it at your other strides?" My mind was ferreting. It backpedaled, tore apart the scenes and moves I had made. I was a confused, jazzy punk. I said, "Jack, your score is 0. I'm not a Vic. I just remembered I got my scratch on Mars. I'll be back when I get back." He was shaking his head when I walked out. I crossed the street. I was headed toward the Ford. I wasn't going there to look for my hide on the seat. I was going there to peel off one of those C-notes next to my balls. I had remembered the scene back in the hike joint. I saw that rattlesnake lightning again. For the first time, I saw the thrill of the cop on the face of the horse. The fox had sure held my balls in the fire for horse face. I thought, as slick as those 2 bastards are, they can't miss making $1 million or getting croaked. From that day to this one, almost 30 years later, no scratch has ever been in my hide. I copped the bottle. I was hurrying to pick up my rib order. Old Preston was back out there bird-dogging suckers. I saw him point a joke into the joint. He slapped the balking sucker on the rump. The Vic went inside. He saw me and hobbled toward me. For the first time, I saw his crippled walk. He grinned when I laid the bottle on him. He said, "Thanks, kid. Want first suck?" I said, "Jack, it's all yours. After I get my ribs, I'll duck back in the joint and rap with you." Preston had his bad dogs propped on a chair when I got back. I stumbled over his makeshift sandals beside the sofa. I sat down. His feet stank like a terminal cancer victim. Even a budding pimp has to have a cast iron belly. I unwrapped and started to gobble the ribs. He said, "I guess you saw Pimpin' Poison hanging that whore on the corner. He's number 2 Mac in town." Through the peppery grease, I blurped, "Yeah, she looked dead to me. I guess he checked her into the morgue." How does he cut the double action? Who, as strong as he is, could top him? He tilted that bottle straight up and drained it. He said, "She ain't croaked. She'll be back out before daylight, humping her ass off. He's the top nigger viceroy in town. His pimpin' don't faze the white brass, just so he don't kick no white asses. Poison is a nice sweet stud compared to Sweet Jones. Sweet's the top spade pimp in the country." I said, "Preston, I want to be great like Sweet. I want my name to ring like his. I want to be slick enough to handle 100 whores. Can you pull my coat so I can cut into Sweet and get down right and really do the thing?" In the half-darkness, I saw his yellow jaw pop loose. His hound face was twisting sideways in quizzical amusement. His face jigsawed like maybe I had asked him to let me knock him up. He starched like a corpse on a sofa. He said, "Kid, you bang a cap of smack or something? Sweet's crazy as a flock of loons. Your bell ain't never gonna clang that loud unless you go crazy too. He killed 4 studs. He ain't human. He got every nigga in town scared shitless. His whores call him Mr. Jones. He hates young punks. I can't cut you into him. Kid, I like you. You're good looking. You conned me that you're intelligent. I am going to give you some advice. Take it or leave it. I came to this town 12 years ago. I was so pretty just my ass would have made you a Sunday face. I brought 5 whores with me. I had been one hell of a pimp back in the sticks. I was only 28 when I got here. Just like you, I had to cut into Sweet. It was easy for me. I was yellow and pretty. I had 3 beautiful white whores in my stable. I didn't know Sweet hated yellow niggas and white men. He grinned that gold-tooth smile for a year. He conned me that he loved me. He was a hype even then. He started to rib me, called me a square. I tried hard to be like him, so I got hooked on H. My habit screwed my mind up. All I wanted to do was bang H and coast. Like a real pal, he kept my stable humping. At first, his anger was Uncle Sweet to my whores. In 6 weeks, he was giving me and my whores orders. He tore my image down before my whores. He copped my stable. One morning, I was puking sick. Sweet was torturing me. He hadn't brought me my stuff in 24 hours. I was cold as ice, wrapped in a blanket, then red hot. I was naked, crawling on the floor, nailing my body bloody when he came in. He stood over me, flashing that gold in his jib. Sweet said, "Easy now, you pretty yellow bastard. There's been a panic. Until this morning, I couldn't cop any stuff. I copped you a 16th in Spicktown. You know I gotta love your stinking junky ass to stick my neck out like that. Ain't that a bitch? I just noticed when you sick, you almost black as me. I wish that bastard white father of yours could see you down there on your knees begging this black nigger to stop your misery." Sweet held the tiny cellophane pack out to me. I was too weak to take it. I said, "Please, Sweet, cook it for me and load my outfit. It's inside the candy-striped tie in the closet. Sweet, if you don't hurry, I'm sure to croak." I was one big ache and cramp. He walked slowly to the closet. He fumbled past the striped tie on the rack. He was getting his kicks, making the yellow nigga suffer. I screamed, "Sweet, you had your mitt on the right one. It's there, right there." Sweet finally got the spike out of the tie lining. I was too weak to shoot the H when he got it cooked. I held my arm flat on the carpet. My eyes begged him to tie me up and bang me. He pulled my belt from my trousers on a chair. He tightened the belt around my arm above the elbow. My veins stood out like blue rope. He stabbed a needle into a vein in the hollow. The glass tube turned red. I lay there freezing to death, waiting for the smack to slug the sickness and pain out of me. Preston stopped for breath. Bubbles of sweat had popped out on his bald head. While running down Sweet's double cross, he had really relived it. I licked the hot sauce off my hands. I crushed the greasy sack into a ball and sailed it into a paper box at the end of the sofa. I fished my handkerchief out and wiped my mouth and hands. Those dice the house was using had a PhD. Every 10 minutes a chump would shuffle from the rear with a tapped-out look on his face. I said, "Christ, Sweet's slick and cold-blooded. What happened after that?" Preston said, "That shot took the fever and pain away. I wasn't ready to go a fast 15 with Joe Louis. I felt better. Sweet stood in the middle of the floor watching me. My legs were weak. When I finally stood up, I stood there naked. I said, 'Sweet, I know you have stolen my stable. I know I have been a prize sucker. I demand that you lay $1,000 or so on me. I got to kick this habit you conned me into. I won't give you any headaches. You got to loan me that G.' Sweet just stood there like a black Buddha for a long moment. For a second, I thought he was going to put his foot in my ass like I was a whore. He grinned. He pulled my robe from the foot of the bed. He draped it around my shoulders. Then he said,